You know that surreal moment when you catch your husband softly caressing another woman's face in a dim Italian restaurant, and your first thought isn't heartbreak, but the sarcastic realization that you're the one footing the bill? That was my Tuesday. I was circling the parking lot of Morello's, that ridiculously overpriced Italian spot where a plate of pasta costs $28, the same kind you could whip up half asleep at 2 in the morning. That's when I saw it, his Tesla. The one with the vanity plate that reads Top Guy, because apparently, humility disappeared sometime after his third promotion. I should have kept driving. Maybe gone to Target, bought throw pillows I didn't need, and convinced myself ignorance was bliss. But my therapist calls it self-destructive curiosity. I call it refusing to be the idiot who doesn't know she's the idiot. I'm Clara, 38 years old, marketing director at a tech startup, and apparently the lead in a reality show I never agreed to star in. I've been married to Evan Whitman for 12 years. 12 years believing we had a strong marriage, 2 beautiful children, and a husband who worked late because he cared about his career. Spoiler, he was dedicated, just not to anything involving me. So I walked into Morello's wearing my yoga pants, the one still marked by Monday's coffee stain I'd stopped trying to remove. I looked like every exhausted suburban mom fresh off the school pickup line. My hair was tied up in a messy bun that was less cute effortlessness and more. I haven't looked in a mirror since 7 a.m. And there he was. Evan. 41 years old, 6 feet tall, with salt and pepper hair that cost a small fortune to maintain, sitting in the Tom Ford suit I'd bought him for Christmas. Across from him was a blonde woman who looked like she lived in Lululemon and pronounced croissant with a French accent at Starbucks. He was staring at her like she'd just discovered the cure for male pattern baldness. Then came the gesture, his hand reaching across the table to gently stroke her cheek. That was what hit me hardest. Because I couldn't remember the last time Evan had touched my face like that. When had he last looked at me as if I was something precious, instead of an item squeezed between pick up dry cleaning and reply to work emails on his mental to-do list? I stood there, half hidden behind one of Morello's decorative olive trees, because of course they lean into that Italian garden fantasy, and did what any modern woman would do. I took out my iPhone and started recording. Every touch. Every smile. Every laugh that felt too intimate to watch. It was like producing a low-budget episode of Dateline, except the only thing that was about to die was my marriage. Then she turned her head slightly, and I caught her profile. My stomach dropped straight through the floor. Sienna. Sienna Moore. His ex-fiancée. The one he'd supposedly broken up with 10 years ago because they wanted different things. The one whose name hadn't come up in years because she was, according to him, a closed chapter. But here's the thing about closed chapters: sometimes someone tears the book open again and sets your entire library on fire. I watched them for 3 full minutes. 3 minutes of him holding her hand. 3 minutes of her laughing at his old recycled jokes. 3 minutes that rearranged my reality, from a marriage with minor cracks to a full-blown disaster. Then I left. No confrontation. No scene. I just walked out of the restaurant, climbed into my sensible Honda CR-V because while Evan drove the Tesla, I was the practical one and sat there trembling. Not crying. Shaking. Because beneath the shock, humiliation, and betrayal, something else was forming: rage, sharpened by curiosity. That special kind of determination that appears when someone treats you like you're too blind to notice your life burning down. I drove back to our 4-bedroom colonial in the suburbs of Portland, Oregon. The house I'd fallen for 7 years ago, the one with the white picket fence I literally painted myself one summer. Our kids, Noah aged 10 and Lila aged 7, were at my sister's house for a sleepover. Sweet, innocent kids whose biggest dilemma was whether they'd get screen time before bed. I poured myself a glass of wine, the expensive bottle Evan always insisted we save for special occasions, which, apparently, meant never, and sat at the kitchen island with my phone. Then I started digging. Because after 12 years of marriage, you know every password your husband uses. You've shared codes, emails, and devices because you thought you were a team. Except one of you was playing a completely different game. His laptop was right there on the counter, the same one he'd abandoned in his rush to an early meeting that morning. I opened it and went straight to his emails. I searched for her name, Sienna. 73 results. My hands were trembling as I opened the first one. Dated last September. Subject: good to hear from you. Casual. Friendly. Hey, so crazy running into you at the conference in Seattle. We should grab coffee and catch up properly. The next one was a week later. Coffee was great. Forgot how easy it is to talk to you. By October, they were meeting for lunch. By November, dinner. By December, the emails grew shorter and the gaps longer because they had moved on to texting. I picked up Evan's iPad, synced perfectly with his phone, thank you, Apple ecosystem, and opened his messages. There it was, months of back and forth. Good morning texts. Good night messages. Inside jokes. Photos. Plans. And then, from 3 weeks ago, one message that froze the blood in my veins. Can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore. Just a few more months and everything will be different. I stared around our kitchen, the family photos lining the walls, the children's artwork clinging to the refrigerator, the calendar marked with soccer practice, dentist visits, and my mother's birthday circled in red. I thought about the past 12 years, the scares and the joys of pregnancy, the sleepless nights, the first days of school, the fights about money and intimacy, the endless debates over whose turn it was to help Noah with his homework meltdowns. There had been good years, too, vacations, anniversaries, slow Sunday mornings with coffee while the kids watched cartoons. All of it, every single moment, unfolding while my husband quietly built his exit plan. I kept digging. And that's when I discovered Evan hadn't merely rekindled an old flame, he'd built an entire second life with her. A life financed by, of all things, my inheritance. When my grandmother passed last year, she left me $250,000. Evan convinced me to invest it in his brilliant new consulting firm, low risk, high reward, he'd said. Perfect for the children's college fund, maybe even early retirement. I trusted him. I signed. I handed over the money. Technically, the company existed, Whitman and More Solutions. I had never questioned the More part, assuming it referred to some business partner I hadn't met. Except I had met her 12 years ago at Evan's 30th birthday, when he introduced her as Sienna, an old friend. An old friend who now co-owned a company built with my money. I poured another glass of wine, saving it for special occasions. This one definitely qualified and started scrolling through the files, financial documents, bank statements, receipts for weekend work trips to San Francisco that were actually romantic getaways with Sienna. Conferences in Austin and Denver that doubled as vacations. There was even an investment account set up for cleaner bookkeeping. That account was paying the rent on Sienna's luxury 2-bedroom apartment in downtown Seattle, the one with a waterfront view and a monthly cost higher than most mortgages. And then it got worse, or better, depending on how you measure betrayal. I found an email from 3 months ago, sent by Sienna. Subject: baby. My heart thudded as I opened it. Just left Dr. Patel's office. It's confirmed. We're having a baby due in March. I can't believe this is finally happening for us. I know the timing isn't perfect yet. The rest overflowed with exclamation points, nursery ideas, baby names, and talk of their fresh start. Sienna was 5 months pregnant. Evan was going to be a father again, while living in my house, kissing our children goodnight and pretending nothing was wrong. I sat in that kitchen, surrounded by the life I'd built, sipping wine and laughing. Actually laughing, because what else can you do when you realize your whole existence has been a performance, and you're the only one who didn't know you were acting? Then I did what any rational woman with joint accounts, 12 years of marriage, and a competent lawyer on speed dial would do. I began to plan. Because if Evan thought he could dismantle my life while I just watched, he had no idea who he'd married. The gloves were off. The rules had changed. And I was about to remind him what happens when you underestimate a woman who has nothing left to lose but her dignity. And trust me, I was getting that back with interest. The next morning, I woke with a wine headache and a mission. Evan had texted after midnight, claiming he was working late again and might crash at the office. The office, sure. I was willing to bet Sienna's apartment had an incredibly comfortable office. I replied with a thumbs-up emoji, because apparently, that's what good wives do while plotting their husband's downfall. After dropping the kids at school, Noah grumbling about math homework and Lila chatting about her friend's new puppy, I drove straight to downtown Portland, to the law offices of Veronica Hale, the most feared divorce attorney in the state. I'd found her name in one of those top 10 lawyers who'll ruin your ex lists online. Her reviews said things like, "She got me everything, plus his dignity." Perfect. Veronica's office occupied a glass front tower that practically whispered, "You're about to spend a fortune, but it'll be worth every cent." She was around 50, sharp-suited, with the kind of precision haircut that costs $300 and announces I win cases before breakfast. "So," she said once I laid out the affair, the stolen inheritance, the fake business, the pregnancy, the refinancing trick. "Your husband is sleeping with his ex-fiancée, using your inheritance to bankroll their company, and she's pregnant with his child. Oh, and he's planning to get you to sign refinancing papers transferring the house solely to him. Did I miss anything?" She smiled, a slow, dangerous smile that looked exactly like a shark before it bites. "I like you already. When can you get me copies of everything?" I handed her a flash drive. Already done. Emails, messages, bank records, business files, photos, videos, 8 months of proof. She plugged it in and began scrolling, her grin widening with every click. "Mrs. Whitman, Clara, your husband is an idiot," she said finally. "He left a paper trail even a kindergartner could follow. Joint accounts covering personal expenses for another woman, business charges that are obviously personal, text messages about hiding assets. This isn't just grounds for divorce, it's potential fraud." "How fast can we move?" I asked. "How fast do you want to move?" she countered. "Yesterday." Veronica laughed. "I can have the papers ready by the end of the week. But first, we're freezing every joint account. Then we'll file injunctions to stop him from touching a single marital asset. We're going to hire a forensic accountant to trace every cent," Veronica said. "Then we'll take him for everything he's worth." "What about the business, Whitman and More Solutions?" I asked. Veronica's eyes lit with sharp excitement. "You invested your inheritance, $250,000, a premarital asset, and you have signed documentation, correct? Contracts, bank transfers, proof of origin." I nodded. "Then that company is at least 50% yours, possibly more. We'll demand your full investment back with interest, plus damages for fraud. If we can show that he misrepresented the company's purpose to obtain the funds, we might even push for criminal charges." Something unfamiliar stirred in me. It took a second to name it, hope, mixed with a fierce, vindictive satisfaction. "One more thing," I said. "Can we make sure his employer hears about the fraud? He works for Ellison and Associates. They care deeply about ethics." Veronica's smile turned predatory. "A formal disclosure to their HR department would be entirely appropriate, especially if company resources or ours were involved." When I walked out of her office, I felt lighter than I had in years, as if a heavy chain had been cut loose. But I wasn't finished, not even close. Next stop, Evan's office. I still had keys from years ago for emergencies. Well, this qualified. I waited until lunch hour, knowing he'd be out, probably with Sienna, sharing overpriced salads and plans for their new life, funded by my inheritance. I entered Ellison and Associates like I belonged there, smiled at the receptionist, and walked straight toward Evan's door. His assistant, a 20-something named Kara, the same one who'd always looked at me with a mixture of pity and gossip-fueled curiosity at company parties, looked up. "Oh, hi, Mrs. Whitman. Evan's at lunch." "I know," I said calmly, lifting a manila folder. "Just dropping something off. Confidential. I'll leave it on his desk." She nodded and went back to typing. Too easy. Inside, I took my time. I photographed everything, his calendar filled with meetings that matched Sienna's Instagram posts from those same dates and cities, receipts from jewelry stores I'd never seen gifts from, and files showing payments from Whitman and More Solutions to Sienna's apartment and a BMW that certainly wasn't parked in our driveway. Then I did something petty. I changed his computer wallpaper from the professional mountain landscape to the photo I'd taken at Morello's, Evan, Sienna, his hand on her face like a scene from a romance novel. I set it as the screensaver too. Let him explain that to his coworkers. As I stepped into the hallway, I nearly collided with Graham Ellison himself, the firm's founding partner. Gray-haired, expensive suit, the sort of man whose entire career rested on integrity and reputation. "Clara, good to see you," he said warmly. "How are the kids?" "They're great, Mr. Ellison." "Growing too fast." I paused, then added casually, "Actually, thank you for being so understanding about Evan's situation." His brow creased. "Situation?" "Oh," I covered my mouth quickly. "I assumed he'd told you about the new business venture. Whitman and More Solutions. I just wanted you to know how much we appreciate your flexibility with his schedule." Mr. Ellison's expression flattened. "I'm not aware of any outside business ventures. Evan would need committee approval for something like that." "Oh no," I said softly. "I shouldn't have mentioned it." "Please forget I said anything. I'd hate to cause problems." He gave me a polite nod, but I could practically see the gears turning. Graham Ellison wasn't the kind of man who ignored red flags. By tomorrow, Evan would be sitting in a conference room explaining why he'd been running an undisclosed side business, likely using company time and resources. I drove home humming, almost cheerful. The kids would be home in a few hours. Dinner, homework, normal life. I had to keep the act going. That night, Evan stumbled in at 9 o'clock, looking exhausted, the guilty kind of exhausted, not the working too hard kind. "Hey, babe," he said, kissing the top of my head as if nothing were wrong. "Sorry I'm late. Crazy day." "I'm sure," I replied, eyes still on my laptop as I pretended to type work emails. "How was lunch?" A hesitation. Barely a flicker, but I caught it. "Fine. Ate at my desk. Sandwich from that deli on 3rd. Liar. His credit card statement showed Legion, $147 for 2. "That's nice," I said smoothly. "By the way, did you remember we have that meeting with the mortgage company on Friday? The refinancing appointment." His face brightened. "Yes, it'll really help with our cash flow." Our cash flow, I thought. The audacity. "I'm looking forward to it," I said sweetly. "Securing our future." He smiled, squeezed my shoulder. "That's my girl, always thinking ahead." I waited until he went upstairs to shower, then texted Veronica, "Friday meeting is when he wants me to sign. How do we handle this?" Her reply came instantly. "Let him think you're going to sign. I'll have papers ready to serve him right after. Maximum impact." Friday, 3 days away. I could pretend that long. Wednesday morning, Evan was summoned to Graham Ellison's office. He left pale and returned that evening drenched in sweat. "Everything okay?" I asked, keeping my tone innocent. "Yeah, work stuff. Partnership politics." Thursday morning, Veronica called. "The forensic accountant found something. Your husband's been siphoning money from Ellison and Associates client accounts into his own company. Small transfers, hidden with creative bookkeeping. It's embezzlement, Clara. Potentially criminal." I sank into a chair. "He's been stealing from his firm?" "Looks like it. We could take this to the district attorney, but I'd advise using it as leverage in the divorce. Criminal charges might freeze the assets for years. Better to get what's yours now and let the firm handle him later." "What should I do?" "Come to my office tomorrow morning, before the mortgage appointment. We'll finalize everything," Veronica said, sliding the final folder toward me, "and he'll be served the moment he realizes you're not signing." Friday morning arrived sharp and cold. I dropped the kids at school, hugging them tighter than usual. Noah, being 10, squirmed away. Public affection was apparently social suicide. But Lila wrapped her arms around my neck. "You okay, Mommy?" she asked. "I'm perfect, sweetheart. See you tonight." At 9 o'clock, I met Veronica. By 10:30, I'd signed divorce papers, asset protection orders, and granted her full permission to contact Ellison and Associates and the Oregon State Bar about Evan's misconduct. "One last thing," she said, flipping through her notes. "Where's the mortgage appointment?" "First National Bank, downtown branch. Noon." Veronica smiled, a slow, calculating smile. "Perfect. I'll have a process server meet you there." The second he realizes you're not signing, he'll be served right in front of the bank officer and witnesses. Isn't that cruel? I asked quietly. She shook her head. Cruel is stealing your inheritance and getting another woman pregnant while you raise his kids. This is efficient. She was right. At 11:45, I walked into First National Bank. Evan was already waiting, nervous, but pretending to be confident, probably imagining all the equity he was about to steal. Ready to secure our future? He said with a smile. Absolutely, I replied evenly. Let's do this. The bank officer, a middle-aged woman named Martha with practical glasses and a calm, professional smile, welcomed us into her office. Her nameplate read Senior Loan Specialist. She had no idea she was about to witness the most dramatic implosion of a marriage her Friday would ever see. Mr. and Mrs. Whitman, wonderful to see you both, Martha said cheerfully. I've prepared all the refinancing documents. This should be quick and painless. She slid a thick stack of papers across her desk. As we discussed, this will transfer the deed entirely into your name, Mr. Whitman, simplifying your tax situation and improving your refinance terms. Evan nodded eagerly, reaching for the pen. Exactly what we need. Mrs. Whitman, Martha continued, I'll need your signature on pages 4, 7, 12, and 15. There are sticky tabs marking each spot. I picked up the papers, flipping through them slowly. Then I looked at Evan, his knee bouncing, his smile tight with anticipation. Actually, I said, my tone careful, I have a few questions. His smile faltered. Honey, we've gone over this. It's just paperwork, financial strategy, remember. Right, I said. Financial strategy. I turned to Martha. If I sign this, what exactly am I signing away? Martha blinked, glancing between us. Well, you'd be removing your name from the deed. The house would be solely in your husband's name, but of course, you'd still live there, you're married. If you got divorced. The air went still. Evan's jaw tightened. Clara, he said, voice strained. What are you talking about? Just a hypothetical question, I replied calmly. If we divorced after I signed, what would happen to the house? Martha hesitated, her expression uneasy. In that case, since the house would be titled in Mr. Whitman's name only, it would be considered his separate property. You wouldn't have a claim to it in the divorce settlement. Interesting. I set the pen down. And what about the $250,000 of my inheritance money that paid for the down payment 7 years ago? Evan's face drained of color. Would I have any claim to that investment if the property were in his name alone? I asked, keeping my eyes on Martha. She shifted uncomfortably, her gaze flicking toward Evan. That would be complicated. Technically, premarital assets can be argued in court, but if you sign over the deed, you're essentially gifting your equity share to your husband. It would be very difficult to recover. That's what I thought. I stood up. I'm not signing. Clara, Evan said sharply. Can we talk about this outside? No need. I picked up my purse. I'm not signing away my house, my investment, or anything else. Your house. He rose to his feet, anger creeping into his voice. I'm the one who's been making the mortgage payments while you work part-time. Part-time. I let out a short, disbelieving laugh. I work 45 hours a week, Evan. I make $70,000 a year, and I've contributed to this mortgage from day one. Martha stared at her computer screen, pretending to be invisible. This is ridiculous, Evan hissed. You're being paranoid and emotional. Am I? I pulled out my phone and opened my gallery. Is it paranoid to wonder why my husband needs secret meetings at Morello's? I turned the screen toward him. His face. His hand on Sienna's cheek. The photo glowed between us. His skin went from red to ghost white in 2 seconds flat. Or maybe I'm being emotional, I continued, swiping to the next photo, about learning that my husband has been running a company with his ex-fiancée using my inheritance money. Another swipe, bank statements. Or that his business trips to San Francisco and Austin were actually romantic getaways. Clara, let me explain. Oh, I'd love to hear the explanation for how Sienna Moore happens to be 5 months pregnant with your child while we're still married. Martha gasped. She couldn't help it. Evan looked like he might vomit. How did I find out? I cut in. voice steady but trembling from the adrenaline. That's your question? You left your iPad synced to your phone, genius. Every message, every email, every I love you, and I can't wait to start our life together. Mrs. Whitman, Martha said softly, perhaps you should. The office door opened. A woman in a navy business suit stepped in, holding a manila envelope. Evan Whitman, she asked. Not now, Evan snapped. She didn't blink. I'm a process server. You've been served. She handed him the envelope and left. Evan stared at it as if it might explode. What is this? Open it and find out. His hands shook as he tore it open. I watched the color drain from his face, first confusion, then denial, horror, and finally panic. Divorce papers, he whispered. You're filing for divorce. Very observant, I said coolly. I can see why they made you senior associate. Clara, wait, we can talk about this, fix this. Fix this. I snatched the papers from his hand and read aloud. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Request for emergency injunction freezing all joint assets. Demand for forensic accounting of all marital finances. Motion to claim ownership interest in Whitman and more solutions. I looked up at him. Should I keep going? There's an entire section about the embezzlement at Ellison and Associates. His face turned a lifeless shade of gray. You wouldn't. I already did, I said quietly. Veronica Hale is my attorney. You might have heard of her. She's the one who got Allison Patel full custody, I said, picking up my purse and her ex-husband's boat collection. Veronica had told me that herself, almost proudly. She's very excited about our case, I added. Says it's the most clear-cut fraud she's seen in years. This is insane, Evan stammered. You can't just. I can, I interrupted, calm and steady. And I did. Then I turned to Martha, who looked like she wished she could disappear into her desk. I'll be refinancing in my name only once the divorce is finalized, I said. That won't be a problem, will it? She shook her head faintly. No, ma'am. I walked out of that bank with my head held high and my hands steady. But 3 blocks later, sitting in my Honda CR-V, my car, bought with my money, I had to pull over. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't see straight. But I wasn't crying. I was laughing. I called Veronica. It's done, I said. How'd he take it? About as well as a man watching his entire plan collapse could take it. He looked like he might faint. Good. Now the fun begins. We froze all joint accounts this morning. He won't be able to touch a cent. We've also filed for a restraining order to stop him from selling or transferring assets. And I just spoke with Graham Ellison. He's very interested in the embezzlement evidence. Evan's been placed on immediate administrative leave pending an investigation. I closed my eyes. He's going to lose his job. Veronica didn't hesitate. He stole from clients, Clara. He deserves to lose his job, his license, and maybe even his freedom, depending on what the district attorney decides. She was right. I knew she was right. But beneath the satisfaction, a small piece of me still ached, the piece that had once loved him, that had believed in the life we built. It felt almost like grief. What happens next? I asked quietly. Now we wait, Veronica said. He'll reach out. He'll beg, apologize, make promises. Don't respond. Don't pick up. Everything goes through me. She paused. How are you feeling? Honestly? Terrified, relieved, angry, and victorious, all at once. That's normal. You just blew up your entire life. But you did it on your terms, which is a lot better than letting him do it on his. I drove home to our home. My home. The house I'd fallen in love with 7 years ago. The house where I'd brought my babies home from the hospital, where I'd believed I was building something solid. It would stay mine. I picked up Noah and Lila from school. They chattered the whole ride home, Noah about his science project, Lila about her spelling test. Ordinary, beautiful things. Where's Dad? Noah asked over dinner. He said he'd help me with my volcano project tonight. He has to work late, honey, I said softly. But I can help you. You don't know anything about volcanoes, he protested. I know how to Google volcanoes, I said, smiling. Which is pretty much the same thing. Lila giggled. Noah rolled his eyes, but he smiled too. That night, after the kids were asleep, Evan started calling. I let every call go to voicemail. 17 calls, 12 messages, each one more desperate than the last. Clara, please. We need to talk. This is crazy. You're not thinking clearly. What about the kids? You're destroying our family. I made mistakes, but we can fix this. That witch lawyer is poisoning you against me. If you don't answer, I'm coming over. I texted him once. If you come to this house, I'll call the police. All communication goes through my attorney. Then I blocked his number. I poured a glass of the expensive wine, because why not, and sat on my couch, in my home, thinking about what came next. Evan would fight. He'd hire a lawyer. He'd call me emotional, unreasonable, vindictive. He'd try to use the kids as leverage. But I had evidence, mountains of it. Fraud, adultery, embezzlement, theft. Proof that would stand in any courtroom. And I had something else, something he'd never understood. I had rage sharpened into strategy. Heartbreak refined into action. Betrayal turned into power. I'd spent 12 years playing the supportive wife while he built his career. 12 years putting his ambitions above my own. 12 years fading into the background of my own life. Now, I was the most visible person in his world, the one standing between him and everything he wanted. My phone buzzed. A new text from an unknown number. This is Sienna. We need to talk. I stared at it for a moment, then forwarded it to Veronica with a note. The mistress wants to chat. Thoughts? Her reply came back immediately. Block her. Let her stew. She's panicking, her meal ticket just vanished. I blocked the number. Seconds later, another text appeared from a different number. Clara, please. I'm pregnant. I need Evan. You're being selfish. I laughed out loud. Selfish. The woman who stole my husband and my money thought I was being selfish. I blocked that number too. Then I did something I hadn't done in 12 years. I called my college roommate Nora, the friend Evan had always called too much drama. Clara, she answered, her voice bright. Oh my God, it's been forever. Hey Nora, are you free tomorrow? I need to tell you the most unbelievable story of your life, and I need someone to drink wine with who won't judge me. Are you kidding? I'm free right now. Come over. Bring wine. Bring the story. For the first time in years, I smiled, a real one. Not the polite one I gave Evan, not the tired one for the kids. A genuine, relieved smile. I'll be there in 20 minutes, I said. Perfect. I'll order pizza, the good kind, not the healthy kind. I grabbed 2 bottles of wine from Evan's special collection and headed out the door. Because if this week had taught me anything, it was that revenge pairs best with good wine, great friends, and zero guilt about dismantling the life of the man who tried to dismantle yours. The gloves were off. The papers were filed. The accounts were frozen. And me? I was just getting started. Nora's apartment was exactly what I needed, messy, lived in, cluttered with thriving plants despite clear neglect, and completely judgment-free. She opened the door in sweatpants and a faded college t-shirt, took one look at my face, and pulled me into a hug. Okay, she said. Wine first, story second, or story first, wine during. Wine during, I said. Definitely wine during. 2 hours later, I'd told her everything. Every sordid detail, the restaurant, the emails, the pregnancy, the stolen inheritance, the embezzlement, the divorce papers served at the bank. Nora just stared at me, jaw slack, occasionally topping off our glasses. I need you to understand something, she said finally. This is the most insane story I've ever heard. And my sister married a guy who turned out to have 3 other wives in different states. Your sister wins, I said. No, you win, she replied. Because you didn't just catch him, you built a case. You're like if Nancy Drew grew up and got really, really angry. She raised her glass. To Clara Whitman, who doesn't get mad, she gets evidence. We clinked glasses. So, what happens now? She asked. Now, I said, it gets interesting. And it did. Monday morning, Veronica called. You might want to sit down for this. I'm already sitting. Ellison and Associates fired Evan this morning, effective immediately. They're also filing a civil suit against him to recover the embezzled funds. So far, they've traced roughly $80,000. and they've reported him to the Oregon State Bar for ethics violations. I closed my eyes. $80,000. Yes, Veronica said. He stole $80,000 from his own firm to bankroll his fantasy life with Sienna. I didn't even have time to process that before she continued. The forensic accountant just finished the preliminary report. Whitman and More Solutions. Completely fake. No clients. No revenue. Just a shell used to funnel your inheritance into personal spending, Sienna's apartment, her car, their vacations, furniture, clothes, all of it. Can we get the money back? I asked. We're going to try. But here's the best part. Since it was your premarital inheritance and he obtained it under false pretenses, we can likely recover the full amount plus damages. And since Sienna knowingly participated in the fraud, she's financially liable too. She has to pay me back? If she owns anything of value, yes. We're coming after both of them. I thought about Sienna in her waterfront apartment, wearing designer yoga pants, driving her BMW, the things I'd unknowingly paid for. Go after everything, I said. Already on it, Veronica replied. Oh, and one more thing. Evan's trying to fight the asset freeze. His lawyer filed a motion claiming you're being vindictive and preventing him from accessing living funds. He has a job, I said. Then paused. Oh wait, no, he doesn't. Veronica laughed. Exactly what I told the judge. Motion denied. The freeze stays until the divorce is finalized. That afternoon, I got an email from Graham Ellison himself. Clara, I wanted to personally apologize. I had no idea Evan was engaged in this kind of conduct. Ellison and Associates takes ethics violations extremely seriously, and we're committed to ensuring you're compensated for any losses tied to his actions. If you need anything, please contact me directly. I forwarded it to Veronica with a note. Is this genuine, or is he worried I'll sue the firm too? Her reply came fast. Both. But take it. Corporate guilt is leverage. By Wednesday, things started to move fast. Veronica called again. Evan's lawyer, some guy named Holden, wants a settlement conference. Which means he knows he's cornered, I said. Exactly. He's offering a 50-50 split of all assets except the house. He wants the house. You get half the remaining assets and your inheritance back. Joint custody of the kids. I laughed so hard I snorted. He thinks he's getting my house? That's what I told him, Veronica said, amused. Exact words. My client would rather set fire to the house than let your client have it. He didn't love that. So what's our real ask? The house. Full custody, with his visitation dependent on stable employment and housing. Your inheritance back in full with interest. Half his retirement and savings. 3 years of alimony while you stabilize post-divorce, and full child support based on his previous income, not the unemployed version. Can we really get all that? Veronica chuckled. Honey, we can get more. But we'll start there and watch him squirm. Then Thursday arrived with a gift I didn't know I needed, an email from Sienna's lawyer. She was suing Evan for breach of promise. Apparently, he'd promised to marry her once the divorce was finalized, to support her and the baby, to build their future on the success of Whitman and More Solutions. Now that she'd discovered the business was fake, he was unemployed, and his assets were frozen, she wanted compensation. She was suing him for fraud, emotional distress, and palimony. She's suing him? I said to Nora over the phone, laughing so hard I had to catch my breath. The mistress is suing the cheater. That's poetic. Nora wheezed. That's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. It gets better, I said. She's claiming he defrauded her. That he told her the business money was his, not stolen from his wife. Is that true? Who cares? They're eating each other alive, and I'm just sitting here watching. Friday came, exactly 1 week since the day I served Evan his papers. That morning, I got a text from an unknown number. This is Evan. I know you blocked me. Please, we need to talk. I've lost everything, my job, my reputation. Sienna won't speak to me. I'm staying in my brother's basement. Please give me another chance. Think about the kids. I stared at it for a long time. Think about the kids. The same kids he was ready to abandon for his pregnant mistress. The same kids whose college fund he drained to pay for luxury hotels. The same kids he barely saw because he was too busy living his second life. I forwarded the message to Veronica. "Can I respond?" "What do you want to say?" she asked. "The truth." "Then say it. Keep it short. Don't engage further." I typed carefully. "You didn't lose everything, Evan. You threw it away. There's a difference. You made choices every single day for 8 months. You chose to lie. You chose to steal. You chose to betray everyone who trusted you. These aren't consequences I'm giving you. They're consequences you earned. And as for the kids, I think about them every single day. That's why I'm making sure they grow up knowing actions have consequences and integrity matters. Something you clearly never learned." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. His response came within seconds. "You're a cold, heartless woman. I gave you everything." I showed the message to Veronica. "Perfect," she said. "He's emotional and defensive. His lawyer's going to love that." The following Tuesday, we had our settlement conference. Evan looked terrible, unshaven, wearing a wrinkled dress shirt, eyes hollow, cheeks sunken. He'd lost weight. He looked like a man who had watched his life collapse in slow motion. Good. His lawyer, Holden, was young and visibly nervous. Veronica, on the other hand, was sharp, calm, and utterly merciless. "My client's position is clear," she began. "Full custody of the children. The house. Repayment of the inheritance, with 8% interest. Alimony. Child support. Half of all remaining marital assets and retirement accounts. And Mr. Whitman covers all legal fees, hers and his." "That's outrageous," Holden sputtered. "You're trying to leave him with nothing." Veronica didn't blink. "He left himself with nothing when he committed fraud and embezzlement." "My client made mistakes," Holden said weakly. "Your client committed crimes," Veronica countered. "Multiple crimes. If Mrs. Whitman wanted to be vindictive, she'd have filed criminal charges. Instead, she's being remarkably generous by only asking for what's rightfully hers." Evan leaned forward, his voice shaky. "Clara, please, be reasonable." I looked at him, the man I'd once built my life around, the man who had destroyed it without hesitation. "I'm being perfectly reasonable," I said quietly. "You stole $250,000 of my inheritance. You stole from your employer. You committed adultery. You tried to take my house and leave me with nothing. And now you want me to be reasonable?" "I didn't make mistakes, Evan." "You did. Own them." The mediation went nowhere. Holden kept trying to chip away at terms, but Veronica held her ground. Eventually, we agreed to let a judge decide. "Litigation it is," Veronica said cheerfully as we walked out. "Which means discovery, depositions, subpoenas. Every sordid detail of his affair and fraud will be on record. His lawyer knows this. Give it a week. He'll fold." She was right. 5 days later, Holden called with a new offer. Evan would concede everything: the house, custody, repayment of the inheritance, alimony, child support, if I agreed to seal the court records and not press criminal charges. "He's protecting what's left of his reputation," Veronica explained. "If this goes public, every attorney in Oregon will know he's a thief and an adulterer. He'll never work in anything law-adjacent again." "What do you think I should do?" I asked. "What do you want to do?" I thought about it for a long moment. "I want my kids to have a father who isn't in prison. I want my money back. I want my house. I want to move on with my life." I paused. "But I also want him to wake up every single day knowing he lost everything because of his own choices." Veronica smiled. "We can make that happen." We settled. I got everything. The house, mine, free and clear. Full custody, with Evan limited to supervised visitation every other weekend due to his unstable living situation. My inheritance repaid in full with interest, $274,000. 3 years of alimony at $3,500 a month. Child support of $2,000 a month. Half of his remaining retirement accounts. And he paid every legal fee, both mine and his. The records were sealed. I didn't pursue criminal charges. But I made sure every parent at Noah and Lila's school knew exactly why Evan Whitman no longer came to soccer practice or school events. I didn't need to say much, just one carefully timed conversation at pickup. "Oh, we're divorced now," I told one mom. Turns out he was living a double life with his ex-fiancée. These things happen. Suburban gossip spreads faster than wildfire. Within a week, everyone knew. Within 2, Evan's mother called me in tears, apologizing for her son, begging me to let her still see the kids. Of course, I told her gently. "You didn't do anything wrong. The kids love you." She sobbed harder. "He's my son, but what he did to you. I'm so ashamed." As for Sienna, her lawsuit against Evan went nowhere. You can't squeeze money from someone who doesn't have any. Last I heard, she'd moved back to Idaho to live with her parents. She gave birth to a boy in March. Evan visits when he can afford the bus fare. He never found another job in law. Turns out being disbarred for ethics violations makes you unemployable. According to Noah, his dad now works retail at a Home Depot in Beaverton, still living with his brother and driving a 15-year-old Honda Civic. The Tesla was repossessed months ago. And me? I'm still in my house. The kids are thriving. Lila's in gymnastics. Noah made the travel soccer team. I got promoted at work. Turns out I'm far more productive when I'm not being emotionally drained by a narcissist. I repainted the bedroom, threw out every trace of Evan's taste, and replaced it all with colors I actually liked. I even went on a date. Nothing serious, just dinner, but it was nice to have someone look at me like I was interesting instead of invisible. The house feels lighter now. Happier. Like it knows it's free too. Here's what no one tells you about watching your life implode and rebuilding it from scratch. It's both exhausting and exhilarating. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I sat in my backyard, the backyard I'd almost lost, the one that was now completely, legally, and irrevocably mine, watching Noah and Lila chase each other with water guns. It was a Saturday in August, one of those rare, perfect Portland days where the sun actually comes out, the temperature hovers around 75 degrees, and everyone acts like it's a national holiday. Nora was there, lounging in a chair with lemonade, grinning at the kids. "You know it's wild," she said. 6 months ago, you were married to a man who was quietly destroying your life. Now look at you, new haircut, new job title, and you're actually smiling." "The haircut was necessary," I said. "I needed to stop looking like a suburban mom who'd given up." "You never gave up," she said. "You just redirected your energy, from keeping a marriage alive to burning it down." I laughed. She wasn't wrong. The thing about betrayal, real, deep betrayal, is that it clarifies everything. When Evan was stealing my inheritance and building a secret life with his ex-fiancée, I was busy trying to be the perfect wife, the supportive partner, the woman who didn't complain when he worked late or took business trips or pulled away. I was too focused on holding everything together to see he was the one tearing it apart. But once it broke, I stopped holding back. And for the first time in years, I finally felt whole. Together that I didn't notice, I was the only one holding anything. And when it all finally collapsed, when I stopped trying to hold it up, I realized how much lighter life felt without the weight of pretending. Noah ran over, dripping wet and grinning. "Mom, can we get pizza for dinner?" "Sure, buddy. Can it be the good kind?" "With extra cheese." "The good kind with extra cheese," I promised. He nodded, satisfied, and sprinted back toward the yard. Lila followed, yelling something about pepperoni. "They seem okay," Nora said, watching them. "All things considered, they are," I said. "Better than okay, actually." I sipped my lemonade. "Their therapist says they're processing everything well. They miss their dad, but they're not traumatized. Kids are resilient like that." "And Evan? Still doing the Home Depot thing?" "Last I heard, yes. Noah said he got promoted to department supervisor, which is something, I guess." I shrugged. "He sees them every other weekend. Takes them to the park or the movies. He's trying. Do you feel bad for him?" I thought about it, really thought. "No," I said at last. "I feel bad that my kids don't have the father they deserve. I feel bad they learned at 7 and 10 that people you love can still lie to you." "But Evan himself?" "No. He made his choices. He lives with them." Nora laughed softly. "That's very mature of you. Maturity, I said, is just exhaustion disguised as wisdom. She snorted. Put that on a throw pillow. The truth was more complicated. Some days I was angry. Some days I mourned the life I thought I had. Sometimes I looked at old photos, two smiling people who once believed they'd grow old together, and felt something that wasn't quite sadness, but wasn't relief either. Mostly, though, I felt free. Free from the constant, low hum of anxiety that came with pretending things were fine. Free from the exhaustion of fixing what one person had already abandoned. Free from the humiliation of being the last to know I'd been replaced. My phone buzzed. A text from Veronica. Inheritance payment cleared. Check your account. $274,000. Back where it belonged. I'd already planned what to do with it. Half for Noah and Lila's college funds, locked, protected, in my name alone. A quarter for retirement. The rest for something long overdue, a vacation fund. Because if this nightmare had taught me anything, it was that saving everything for someday is how you wake up and realize someday never came. Good news? Nora asked, watching my face. The best. The money's back. What are you going to do with it? Not give it to a lying husband, for starters. We both laughed. That evening, after Nora left and the kids were asleep, I sat on the porch with a glass of expensive wine, because I'd stopped saving nice things for special occasions and thought about everything that had happened. A year ago, I'd been married, comfortable, certain of my future. Now I was divorced, 38, a single mother starting over, and somehow impossibly happy. Not because divorce was easy, it wasn't. Not because single parenthood was simple, it isn't. Not even because watching Evan's life implode was satisfying, though, honestly, it was a little. It was because I'd learned the truth. You can't build a life on lies. You can't love someone who doesn't respect you. And you can't save a marriage when only one person is in it. I'd spent 12 years trying to be enough, trying to be the perfect wife, the patient partner, the quiet fixer. Turns out I'd been enough all along. Evan just needed someone who'd let him be mediocre without consequence. My phone buzzed again. An unknown number. This is Evan. I know I'm not supposed to contact you, but I wanted you to know I'm sorry for everything. You deserved better. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without replying. Because apologies that come after the wreckage aren't about making things right, they're about easing the guilt of the person who caused the damage. And I wasn't interested in helping Evan feel better about his choices anymore. I had Noah's soccer schedule to juggle, Lila's gymnastics meets to attend, a promotion that came with more responsibility and more pay, a house to maintain, a life to live. I had friends again, like Nora, who I'd once pushed away because Evan thought she was too dramatic. I had hobbies I'd forgotten, dreams I'd postponed, joy I'd misplaced. Most importantly, I had myself, the version of me that existed before I started shrinking to fit someone else's story. And that woman? She was extraordinary. Lila padded onto the porch in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. Mom, can't sleep. Come here, baby. She climbed into my lap, still small enough to fit, though not for long. We sat quietly, watching the stars bloom across the Portland sky. Mom, she said softly. Yeah. Are you happy? Such a simple question. Such a complicated answer. Yeah, sweetheart, I said. I'm good. She smiled sleepily. Me too. And there it was, the only validation I'd ever need. Not revenge, though that had been sweet. Not money, though reclaiming it mattered. Not even justice, though seeing it served had healed something deep. Just this, my daughter in my arms, my son sleeping upstairs, my house around us. My life, messy, imperfect, complicated, and completely mine. Let's get you back to bed, I whispered. Can you tell me a story? What kind of story? A happy one. I smiled. I know just the one. Once upon a time, there was a woman who thought she'd lost everything, but it turned out she'd only lost what was holding her down. Is it a true story? The truest kind. I tucked Lila in, kissed her forehead, and closed the door softly. Then I went downstairs, poured another glass of expensive wine, and made a note to finally book that Amalfi Coast vacation I'd dreamed about for years. Because if losing everything taught me anything, it's this. Don't wait for permission to be happy. Don't save your good wine for special occasions. Don't shrink yourself to fit inside someone else's story. And never, ever underestimate a woman who's learned that the opposite of love isn't hate. It's indifference. Evan could keep his retail job, his brother's basement, and his regrets. I had everything that mattered. And that, as they say in those overly sentimental movies I used to watch while he was out with his mistress, was enough.